Hello, and welcome to my guide on both herb runs and fruit tree runs for the Garden of Kharid update in RuneScape 3. This guide is going to be split into basically two parts. The front half of it is going to be about the herb runs, and the second half is going to be about the fruit tree runs. I'm going to keep it pretty simple. On screen now will be a table of contents, so you can skip around to whatever part of the video you actually want to watch, and I will also have everything timestamped in the description. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. So there are a ton of different items for farming. I don't want to take a bunch of time by touching on all of them, so I'm just going to touch on the ones that might be a little confusing to read. You can pause this at any time if you want to be able to read through all of them. Some of these mention things like harvest lives. Basically what all that means is every time you pick from an herb patch, there is a chance that it reduces the number of harvest lives it has remaining, and when it runs out of harvest lives, the patch becomes empty. Every patch starts with 3 harvest lives, and it goes up depending on if you use compost or plant power. And in the case of the magic secateurs and the master farmer outfit, magic secateurs, you have a 10% increased chance on your roll to save a harvest life, and the master farmer outfit has a 10% chance that when you lose a harvest life, it actually just doesn't lose it and you get to keep it. The master farmer outfit also does a bunch of other things for farming, but those are outside the scope of this guide, so I'm just listing the ones that actually matter for herb runs. Greenfinger's Aura gives anywhere from 3 to 15% chance to get an additional herb every time you pick, and that depends on what aura tier you have. You should always use some kind of compost. Super compost is ridiculously cheap, and it's twice as good as normal compost, so you should pretty much always use that. Depending on the price of the herb, ultra compost may be better. It only gives 1 extra harvest life compared to super, so if the price of the herb doesn't make up for the cost between super and ultra compost, you're probably better off not using it. I'll talk more about plant power later on, but basically all it does is it lets you plant more seeds per patch to get more harvest lives per patch, which in turn equates to more herbs per run, which is more money per run. Even with current prices a month after the update, we'll use Dwarfweed as an example because that's what I'm growing. I buy a seed for 7,500 GP and I sell the herb itself for 5,600 GP, and even planting 10 per patch is still more profitable than any of the other plant power options. So generally speaking, even with really high seed prices, even upwards of double the cost of the herb itself, it's still more profitable to plant more seeds per patch. And I'll go into that more later on. Farm ecology basically just stops your herbs from getting disease so it doesn't screw up your farm run timings if one patch gets diseased and the others don't. And also just pretty much ensures that you get the most amount of money you can per run. Trollheim for the extra herb patch, Prifddinas for another extra herb patch, and Prifddinas has some high requirements, but you want to get it anyways because there's a bunch of stuff there for other skills. It's just useful to have on your account to begin with. And Wildy Sword 1, so you get the teleport to the herb patch. It doesn't directly increase your amount of money you get per run, but you don't have to run out to the center of the wilderness every time, and that's more than worth it. Unlike the previous page, none of these items really need an introduction. They're just the teleport items. They say how to unlock them. You simply unlock them, and then you can teleport. It's amazing. The Amulet of Nature is a bit weird, so we'll explain that. And the other footnote I have is the Crystal Teleport Seed and the Sand Seed both have an infinite use version and a consumable version. So depending on how much you do farm runs and how much you enjoy them, it might be worth looking into getting the infinite use ones instead of just burning consumables every time. So the Amulet of Nature, it lets you use it on a diseased farming patch, and it will attune to it, and while it's attuned, you can teleport to that diseased farming patch. We're using this as kind of an oversight, so we can purposely get a farming patch diseased, and then use this as a faster teleport to the actual herb patch that we want to get to. For this example, I'm using Kharid because the lodestone's too far for my liking, so I just teleport to the diseased watermelons that I have, and I'm just right next to the herb patch. You can use this as a replacement for a teleport item if you don't have one, or if you have all of them, you can use it like I am, where you just have it for Kharid. And here's pretty much all the extra miscellaneous stuff that is mostly useless. Like boosting your farming level with the farming familiars and the Ring of Whispers gives you like maybe a third of an extra herb per run. It doesn't equate to anything, but I'm putting on here because why not? Leprechaun auto compost, just throw compost into him for storage, right click on him, click the compost option, and then choose what compost you want to pay for him to auto compost. Quite simple. Scroll of Life used to be kind of useful, now it's just kind of garbage with the plant power because it saves 1 seed and it doesn't save however many seeds you put on it. Maybe this will get changed in the future, who knows. Mobility stuff so you can move around the map faster, and then the interesting ones are the Guardian of Life, which gives you memory shards when planting seeds. You get that from the Memorial to Guthix. Randomly accessed memories, which is the perk for rams and the player on farm if you've done that. You can get memory strands from farming, which is just more divination stuff. And then the Dragon Ultra Combo, which is the dragon perk from the player on farms, gives you a small chance to get an Ancient Effigy from clearing a farm patch, and it only works if you used Ultra Compost on that farm patch. The last thing that I have for extras is that if you're growing bloodweed in the wilderness herb patch, it's typically much better to go and buy the seeds from the vendor in the bandit camp in the wilderness than it is to buy them off the Grand Exchange. The only caveat to this is that in order to actually access the shop in the bandit camp, you have to have PvP enabled, so if you go to do this, make sure that you throw everything into your bank first before you go out, just in case you get PK'd. Once you buy the seeds, use any teleport to get out of the wilderness, and then go back to Edgeville to turn PvP off. The next thing to talk about is the Crux Eqal favor, which is gained by doing herb runs, and it's a currency that you can spend in Sidekick's shop in the Garden of Kharid, which is located above Kharid. There's a few things to say about Crux Eqal favor, but there's not much. The first thing is there is the herb of the day, which will always give 50 favor, no matter what herb it is, and you can figure this out by talking to Politics, which is one of the NPCs that is in the Garden of Kharid. The herb of the day is different for every single player. You also gain favor for every single seed that you plant, including planting multiple seeds in the same patch. So using Guam as an example, if you plant 1 Guam seed in a patch, you get 10 favor. If you plant 2, you get 20, 40, 70, 100, etc. For every single tier plant power. There isn't much else to say. On screen now should be the amount of favor you get for planting every single herb, and the fastest, most cost-effective way to actually gain favor is probably just to plant either Lantodime or Dwarfweed at the highest possible plant power tier that you have available to you. So let's finally talk about plant power. The math behind it isn't particularly complicated, it's just really annoying. Thankfully, there is the wiki calculator, which once you input what you have into it, it'll output the expected yield per plot and how much profit you're expected to get. For the sake of simplicity, as you can see at the top, we are assuming that each plot has been treated with super compost and you have level 99 farming. Even though there's some plant power things that require more than 99, we're just going to assume this to make it simpler. We're also going to assume that each seed and herb costs 5,000 when you buy and sell them on the GE, and it's calculated as the expected herb yield times the herb price minus the seed cost times the amount of seeds you plant. And I've got 3 different things here listed, so we have the profit per plant power tier when we have no bonuses, when we have the magic secatures and the Juju farming potion, and then we have both of those and the Master Farmer outfit with a 5% green fingers aura. I'm not going to waste your time by reading every single thing on the screen, but I will leave the wiki link to the calculator in the description if you want to verify this, or if you just want to put in your own bonuses to see what your results are. So, like I said earlier in the video, as you can see from these results, even when the cost of the seed is double the cost of the herb, it is still more profitable to do the higher plant power tier. The only time this really isn't the case is when you're not using any bonuses, which I'm really only including here as a baseline. I put as a footnote, it is super easy to get the magic secatures and the Juju potion. There is no reason why you should not use them. And again, I'm only putting the no bonuses thing there as more of like a baseline value. So yeah, obviously the more bonuses you have, the more orbs you get and the more money you're going to get. But this is exacerbated by having higher tiers of plant power because the other bonuses you have are just going to work out to be more effective, essentially. So that's plant power. Again, generally just use the highest plant power tier you have available and you'll most likely be fine. As long as you're not growing something that's like super expensive like bloodweed or fellstock, this will just generally be the rule of thumb for you. But again, check the wiki calculator just to make sure. And the last thing before we get into the actual herb run are the map locations for each of the herb patches. I don't really have much to say here. I already showed what the teleport items are, so next to these are just important landmarks that are next to the farm patches if applicable. And the inventory setup is pretty simple. You just bring as many seeds as you need for all the farm patches you're hitting, and then you bring your teleport items, your Juju farming potion, and then your Master Farmer's outfit if you have it. There's also a lot of the teleport items that you can equip if you want to save inventory space. I just don't have them equipped here, so it's a little bit easier to see them in the inventory. If you're like me and the map links don't really mean much to you, it's okay. We're going to cut to a sped up farm run where we'll show a much better visual aid of where the actual farm locations are. I start off by loading my preset from the bank and then teleporting to the God Wars Dungeon 1 teleport. You can use this one or the Trollheim teleport, they both effectively work the same, but we want to start our run at the Trollheim farm patch, just so we don't have to run all the way there while we're under the effects of the Juju potion and waste time. Once we get there, we're going to activate our aura and drink our potion and just begin picking from the herb patch as normal. If you use the herbs on the tool leprechaun, he'll automatically note them for you, so you can just do that when your inventory is full and then go back to picking herbs. Once the patch is empty, I use my ectophile to teleport to Canifis, and I just do the same thing here. Just pick from the herb patch and then note them on the tool leprechaun once my inventory is full. Once this patch is empty, I use my Explorer's Ring to teleport to the Falador patch. Once that patch is empty, I use my Amulet of Nature to teleport to Catherby. And once that one is empty, I use the teleport you get from completing the Ardoin task to teleport to the Manor Farm. After that, I use my Crystal Teleport Seed to go to Prifddinas. And from there, I use the Mystical Sand Seed to go straight to the Garden of Kharid. And finally, we're going to use the Wilderness Sword to teleport to the Wilderness Herb patch. My farming potion does run out in the middle of me clearing this patch, so if you're worried about that happening to you, just bring more than one dose with you. It isn't that big of a deal, honestly. So that's pretty much it for herb runs. There's not really much else. Thank you for sticking around this long if you have, and don't hesitate to leave a comment if you think I missed something important. That being said, let's go ahead and switch on over to the second part of this guide, which is the fruit tree runs. So, much like the items for the herb runs, I'm not going to waste your time by going over literally every single thing in excruciating detail, but thankfully this is every single item for fruit tree runs. There isn't nearly as much. Key things are that the Master Farmer outfit, the Green Fingers Aura, Bountiful Harvest, which you get from Sidekick Shop in the Garden of Kharid, and the Giant Ent Familiar, all increase the amount of fruit that you're going to get from every single fruit tree patch. Some other important things are unlocking Letya, which you get from completing Morning's End Part 1, and unlocking Prifddinas, which requires the quest Plague's End, which you're going to want to unlock anyways. Some other minor things you can unlock to move around the map faster are Spirit Trees, which you get from completing the quest Tree Gnome Village. If you have a high enough farming level, you can plant one in Karumja, which will give you faster access to the Brimhaven farm patch instead of using the Lodestone. Another thing you can do is unlock Gnome Gliders if you've completed the quest The Grand Tree, though admittedly these don't really have too much of a use unless you've also completed the quest The Prisoner of Gluffery and have access to Prifddinas. I'll show it later on when we do the Sped Up Run, but you can use the Prifddinas Glider, which is pretty close to one of the farm trees there, to immediately go to Yanil instead of having to run for about 20 seconds from the Lodestone. And finally, I know it's not listed on here, but having any kind of movement ability such as Surge or Double Surge, Bladed Dive, and the normal dive ability which you get from the quest Succession, all will help you move around the map faster. And finally, we have the patch locations for each of the fruit tree patches. Much like the herb patches, there isn't much to say here. There is a footnote for if there's any important landmarks next to them, if they apply. Other than that, I do not have an inventory set up here because I don't really have an inventory set up for a fruit tree run. It's just I take my Attuned Crystal Teleport Seed and my Master Farmer outfit and then my Familiar. That's pretty much it. But again, if the map blanks don't mean much to you, don't worry, I'm going to show a full sped up run, which will be a much better visual aid. I summon my Familiar and take my Crystal Teleport Seed out of the bank and use it to teleport to Letya. If you spam click on whatever fruit you're harvesting, you can actually gather them every single tick, which makes it much faster. After I finish up here, I teleport to Prifddinas so I can go and gather from that tree as well. After I finish up here, I net my produce and then go to the Gnome Glider and teleport to the Gnome Maze right next to Yanil. Once that's done, I click follow on the NPC to take me to the end of the maze, and then I go inside the central area and use the Spirit Tree to travel to the Gnome Stronghold. After that, I use the Spirit Tree again to go to Karumja. After that, I used the Master Farmer outfit to remote teleport to the Herblore habitat via the Witch Doctor mask in my bank. And from there, I just use the lodestone teleport to Kharid, but I don't have any quick charges, so it takes me a bit. And that's the entire fruit tree run. If you want to stick around for the next part, we'll talk about how much GP an hour you can expect from doing both herb runs and fruit tree runs. Alright, here's a bunch of caveats at the top of the screen, but pretty much all this is me just stating what equipment I am using. So all the bonuses are on the left, the expected price of everything is on the middle, and on the right is my timing. So I can do a full herb run in 6 minutes, and I can do a full fruit tree run in about 3 minutes. These times will vary for you depending on what tier plant power you're using, and how many teleport options you have for both herb and fruit tree runs. Additionally, the prices are going to vary if you're not using every single bonus, so this is pretty much the quote-unquote farming end game for profit per hour. So yeah, the results are pretty self-explanatory. I just use the wiki calculator to plug in all the bonuses and it gets me the expected yield, and then I just factor out the cost of the seeds from what the end result is, and then we have the profit per hour. Assuming the prices as of December 21st, 2022, this is your profit per hour. It's nothing super mind-boggling, but for an extremely low-effort way to make money, this is pretty damn good. But that's pretty much it for me. I'm gonna let this sit on screen while the video fades out, but thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it was able to be of some use to anybody that's looking to make a little bit of money. And you guys have fun.